Believe it, everybody, the entertainment industry, especially Hollywood, have never been in such a weakened position. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. A very, very warm welcome to Thursday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. And on today's show, we're going to discuss Mr. David Zaslav. Because it's been reported by multiple sources, and my sources are telling me as well, that Warner Brothers Discovery stockholders are very, very displeased with David Zaslav in his position and his performance as CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. So what would happen to DC? What would happen to James Gunn and Peter Safran, who were put in place in their positions as the joint CEOs of the newly formed DC Studios, if a vote of no confidence was put towards David Zaslav and he was removed in his position of CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery? What happens to Gunn and Safran? It is complicated. Depends who would replace David Zaslav. And I think there's a real possibility that there will be a vote of no confidence by stockholders of Warner Brothers Discovery in David Zaslav. I think it's coming. It is coming. And I think at this moment in time, he's in a very, very weakened position. Of course, he's not popular by the people who work, the everyday people who work at Warner Brothers, especially Warner Brothers Pictures. He shelved Batgirl, a very, very unpopular decision around Hollywood and around Warner Brothers Pictures as well. Now, he brought in Adby and DeLuca to be joint CEOs of Warner Brothers Pictures. Now, Warner Brothers Pictures is the film division of Warner Brothers Discovery. You with me? They've got different subsidiaries, blah, blah, blah. But Warner Brothers Pictures it's in the name, is the place they make the films. So Adby and DeLuca were brought in to replace Toby Emmerich, who had been there for about 7 years and did some good things and did some very bad things as well, if we're going to be balanced and honest. And it's my belief that Adby and DeLuca are part of a conspiracy, a part of a movement trying to dethrone and defrock David Zaslav as CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. If we go back to SnyderCon 2, right? Do you remember it? Full circle. Now, Deborah Snyder and Zack Snyder thanked Mike DeLuca and Pam Adby. Let's get the names right. I tell you what, I'm doing very, very badly today, aren't I? But never mind. We will digress and try and keep going because we're professionals after all, aren't we? So, yeah, they thanked, at SnyderCon 2, full circle, Deb and Zach thanked Adby and DeLuca and not David Zaslav. Did you notice them not mentioning his name? They credited Warner Brothers Pictures at being a better run studio now than when they were working at the studio, but they didn't mention Warner Brothers Discovery as a whole. They were talking about Adby and DeLuca at Warner Brothers Pictures, and it was them they were complimenting. So we've known for a while that Adby and DeLuca wanted to restore the Snyderverse. They're the ones who brought Henry Cavill back. They're the ones who worked with The Rock to bring him back and try and create a situation where Henry works with The Rock and, his representatives, because his representatives were Henry's representatives. I don't know what's happening now. There were rumors that may change. I don't know. I have no idea. Because Henry trusts them and he trusts The Rock. They've worked together, they know each other. So that's what they were going to do. James Gunn was brought in late on to that process. James Gunn decided he wanted to recast the role of Superman. He wanted to carry on with Walter Hamada's idea of using the Flash movie as a backdoor pilot to create a brand new, multiverse, basically. So at the end of the Flash movie, because of what Barry Allen does, they're going to be in a brand new Earth. So it won't be the Earth of the DCEU, it's going to be the Earth of DC Universe. Are you with me? Are you keeping track? But Adby and DeLuca, I don't know what they were planning in terms of that, if they were going to continue with the DCEU. I think they were. I don't think they were going to go with the Hamada plan. I think they were going to restore the Snyderverse. I don't know if it was going to be an Elseworlds project or basically bring Snyder back to continue what he was doing with the DCEU. I have no idea. But they were big fans of Henry Cavill. They wanted to bring him back as Superman, and clearly the Snyders absolutely adore Adby and DeLuca. But when David Zaslav went against that decision, because it was all over, all their social media accounts, Henry's back by a Man of Steel, do you remember it? Then all of a sudden he was out because Gunn and Safran decided to go in another direction. So this divided the company. Now, that's not the reason why stockholders are not happy with David Zaslav. It's all about the business. The business is imploding because what happens with a merger, you start to lose money and then you slowly start to make money again. But I said in my intro that this industry has never been in such a weakened position before. And it's all these studios, you know, Bob Iger has announced some changes to D+. They're not going to be putting as much output out. We already know that, but they're going to take a lot of content off Disney+. It's an absolute mess out there, everyone. Then you've got the Writers Guild of America members striking, the actors supporting them, the other guilds supporting them. There's a civil war in Hollywood. It's game over, everyone. And at this moment in time, it may be Comcast Universal who actually end up only being the only few studios that survive this cold. I don't know what's going to happen, but Hollywood is in a weakened state. And Warner Brothers Pictures, Warner Brothers Discovery is the one who's in the biggest messes of all because they haven't been making money for a very long time. Zaslav's made some interesting decisions, let's say, some good decisions, some awful decisions. We've discussed them before, but the shelving of Batgirl, I don't think it's necessarily that he shelved it, although that wasn't good, by the way, especially it was a finished movie. For example, he said it wasn't in good condition and he wanted to protect the DC brand. And I said at the time, I wasn't that triggered by the decision, but I'm wondering. I mean, they do reshoots all the time. If it wasn't good enough, why couldn't they go back and remake the movie or fix the problems with the movie? Why did it have to be shelved? I mean, why did they go this summer and, no, not this summer, last summer, and do loads of multiple reshoots for the Flash movie? Why didn't they shelve that movie? Because they think they stand to make a lot of money from it, and more money than they stand to make from the Batgirl movie, because these are desperate people. But the shelving of Batgirl, making the announcement before you told the fucking directors, was outrageous. We know what Batgirl was. We know there was a lot of inclusion. You know, today commentary, nowadays commentary, if you like. If you want me to say the word woke, yes, it was going to be very woke. But you can't shelve something for being woke. If you don't like the wokeness in it as a CEO, you go change it, cut it out. You can do that. You can do that. I know it's difficult, right? But you make improvements. What you don't do is shelve it and make the announcement to the media before you've told the people who were making the movie. So he's made a lot of enemies in the industry. Whether you agree with the decision to shelve Batgirl or not, it wasn't done in a very, very, let's say, this is not cricket. This is not the way you work in Hollywood. I know a lot of things about Hollywood. They don't like outsiders. They don't like people doing things in the opposite way as they're done. It's not the done thing. And we saw what happened to AT&T when they did the day and date. They made enemies out of a lot of people in Hollywood, especially Christopher Nolan. Do you remember what happened there between him and Jason Keeler? And so Hollywood Hollywood is a very problematic place, and there's a lot of bad things they do. But I think once you announce you're shelving some of this project, and you're telling the public and the media before the people who made the movie, and you've got the people who made the movie, you know, being quoted as being excited that our film's going to do this, that, the other, it's a great movie, we can't wait. Meanwhile, David Zaslav is making plans to make your project that you're proud of a tax write-off. So from that moment, Zaslav was in trouble. I remember the reaction to Batgirl being shelved. Of course, the reaction is from the same people who told you not to go and see the Joker because it's a problematic movie, because it's about a man with mental health issues making excuses for a man who murders and who is violent. That's not what the film was. But anyway, and they told you if you went to see the movie, you'd probably get shot and killed, which of course made people go and watch it all the more. And it was a fantastic film. Its Rotten Tomatoes rating is disgusting, but what you expect from a pig but a grunt. So I'm not on the side of the people who complain for the reasons they complained about. You're shoving a movie starring a woman of colour. You know, there's a woman, you know, there's a they them in the movie, and you're shoving it. This is outrageous. No, I'm not criticising the move because of that. I'm criticising the move because it's not the way you should be treating people who work for you. It was absolutely disgusting, and he's been in trouble, Zaslav, ever since then. And you had Saffron when they announced the slate, part one of the Gods and Monsters slate, backing the decision to shelve Batgirl. That's not a very, very good start. Now, unsurprisingly, James Gunn didn't make any comments about Batgirl. He was very sympathetic on Twitter to the directors and has had talks with the directors reportedly as well. I think he's admitted having talks and trying to get the directors to do something with him because clearly he knows this is not the way, you know, Hollywood works, how the industry works. You don't fucking cancel something, make it a tax write-off and don't tell the people who made it before you make the announcement. It's disgusting. Whether you're happy about Batgirl or you're nonchalant about Batgirl being shelved, it doesn't matter. That's not how you treat people. It's wrong. I know. I understand how the business works. This is not how the business works. You can do a lot of shitty things in this industry, in this game, but you don't do that. That is crossing a fucking line. So I'll go back to my original question. What happens to James Gunn and Peter Safran in their current positions if there is a vote of no confidence in David Zaslav? And I do believe that's what's going to happen, by the way. And I do think it's being engineered by Mike DeLuca and Pam Adby. I think they want control of DC for sure, because it would be a very interesting situation, wouldn't it? You could have, I said it earlier, I said it months ago, you could have Mike Adby as the, you know, the lone DC studio CEO. I think that would be very, very good. And I know what you're going to say. You were backing James Gunn yesterday. Look, I'm open-minded about James Gunn. I'm not saying I want this to happen. I'm just talking about Mike DeLuca and how good he is and probably how he should have been the one running DC in the first place. And, you know, he was running DC before Gunn came in. He was made assurances, and then Zaslav kind of went round the roundabout backwards and changed his mind, and all of a sudden Cavill isn't Superman anymore, and a lot of people, the consumer, members of the public, were very, very angry because they realised that Zaslav wasn't a supporter. He was another clown in a way. Because whether you agree with Cavill being recast or not, the way he did it, it's a lot like what they did to the directors of Batgirl. You know, the way they did it with Cavill. 1 minute you're back, then you're not back. That's not on James Gunn. He's a new, you know, he's a new creative lead. He's going to make his decision. He wants to go with his own Superman. I understand that. So I'm open to what Gunn's doing, but I'm just talking about an oncoming scenario at Warner Brothers Pictures and at Warner Brothers Discovery. It could be in the next few months that there is a vote of no confidence in David Zaslav, because that's what I'm being told. They're not happy with him at all for business reasons, which I don't really want to go into because you're not going to understand the reasons, so there's no point, and you're going to be bored. And we're here to talk about entertainment and DC. And so if he's removed, this is going to be a very, very interesting situation and a worrying situation for James Gunn and Peter Safran, because they're certainly on the Zaslav side of things and not on the Mike DeLuca and Pam Adby side of things. So there's, I think, like before Zaslav came in, there was a civil war, there was AT&T, and there was, you know, Emmerich and Hamada, opposite sides. There was a civil war. Do you remember we used to discuss it? And kind of now we've got a similar thing going on where you've got the Zaslav side and you've got, you know, the Mike DeLuca and Pam Adby side. Now, Zaslav brought them in himself. He brought Adby and DeLuca in himself. So you're thinking, well, if he brought them in, why is there an opposing situation? Why is there a civil war? Why is there a divide? Because this is how this business works. It's a very backstabbing, cut and thrust business. But Mike DeLuca and Pam Adby are very old school Hollywood, and they don't like the fact that, you know, Zaslav shelved Batgirl. But the thing that really divided Zaslav with Adby and DeLuca was the shelving of Batgirl. Definitely that was one of them, but the most important thing that upset them was the removal of Henry Cavill. When they worked so hard with, you know, New Line Cinema and different divisions of WB to bring Cavill back and keep him as Superman, or as a Superman at the very least. That would have been a good idea. James Gunn could have said, right, he's not going to be my Superman, but you can use him in the Elseworlds. That would have been a compromise, but there's no compromise. So there was a divide from the day it was announced that Gunn wasn't going to go with Cavill. There was a divide at the studio. But the divide at the studio and the stockholders of Warner Brothers Discovery being angry at Zaslav are two very different things. But it's my belief that Adby and DeLuca are stirring the pot so he can be removed. There's a lot of people who would love Zaslav to be removed. Now, away from DC, there's another thing that's pissed a lot of people off. He allowed a Donald Trump interview on the Warner Brothers Discovery-owned CNN, which is a news network if you haven't heard of it before. And so that's been a big problem as well. And I just think that he's made a lot of enemies. I think that's been a problem. But the Trump thing is also a problem, because more than likely, he's probably a Republican, Zaslav. Not that that matters to me or to anyone sane, but it will matter to a lot of people. But this is what happens when you make enemies. Obviously, Trump's on CNN because Zaslav's seen an opportunity to get big ratings. Because whether you like Trump or not, you know, and whether you hate him or not, if he's on a fucking TV channel, if he's being interviewed, more than likely you're going to watch it. I'm not, because I'm not interested in politics. I think politics has gone to fucking shit. I'm not interested. I refuse to even vote in this system. I want to rebel from this system and build a new one. We need anarchy, not this fucking so-called democratic system. You can clip me and quote me on that. But if Zaslav does go, then I think there will be major changes. So I'm not doing this video, I'm not discussing this today because I'm saying I don't like James Gunn and Peter Safran. I'm telling you the reality of the situation, that the stockholders are not happy with David Zaslav, and if there is a vote of no confidence in him, major changes will happen again at DC. But not just DC, like the idea to reboot Harry Potter, remove it from cinema and take it to HBO Max. Dumb decisions like that would automatically be reversed by Mike DeLuca. Because Mike DeLuca, as I say, is very old school Hollywood. And he doesn't agree with putting streaming before cinema. Now, Zaslav's claimed cinema is the main priority. But how can you trust him with those words when he's rebooting Harry Potter, you know, a movie franchise that made billions of dollars for Warner Brothers, you know, when it was owned by Time Warner, you know, when it was run by sane people. And then you're saying, well, we're going to delete all of that, reboot it and take it to streaming. Does that make any sense to you? Tell me, does that make business sense to you? Because it doesn't to me. And if you get a comment and say it does make business sense to you, you need to explain to me how taking Harry Potter away from the cinema and basically saying this franchise, this canon doesn't exist in live action anymore and starting again. And, you know, making it more diverse, you know, look, come on. It's a bad idea. So, yes, if you're asking me what I think, I do believe that David Zaslav is on his way out already of Warner Brothers Discovery. So, it's a bit of a shit show, but this is where the entertainment industry is going. Like you and me, who, you know, have never been CEOs, who have never, you know, we've never been big famous actors, producers, or directors, could probably run this industry better than them, because most of it's common sense. How do you make money in life, right? How did the first business person make money? He sold something, people liked it, and he kept on selling it, or she kept on selling it, or they then kept on selling it, whatever, man. But basically, that's how business works. If you make something of quality or something that works as a brand, then you sell it and people want to buy it. If you offer people an empty tin and you open the lid and it's an empty tin, they're not going to buy it. And this is where we are today. Hollywood and the Western, generally the Western entertainment industry, decided to go for extremism and creative bankruptcy and basically drive the patriarchy, the people who were doing a good job at running entertainment, out of town, because it's too much of a patriarchal system. Too many men in charge. So they drove out all the talented men, even the talented women, by the way, probably because they were right-wing and Republican. So now it's run by a bunch of former McDonald's workers who don't know what they're doing. The only thing they know what to do is scratch their ass. So this is why this industry is on the floor. Now, Warner Brothers isn't on the floor because of wokeness and because of extremism. It's because it's been a very, very badly run company for a long time. And that never used to be the case. You know, when The Lord of the Rings from Peter Jackson was greenlit, that trilogy was greenlit, you know, bringing Nolan, allowing him to do those Batman movies, the Harry Potter situation, that's when it was run in the right way. But it hasn't been run that way for a very long time. Clown after clown has come in. And that's the truth. So you get the Snyderverse situation, you get the divisive reaction from BVS because they didn't put Zack Snyder in a place where he could do no harm. If you want Snyder to make DC movies, then say, I know, here you go, Zack, here's a little corner there, make your movies, but you're not going to be part of our central universe. We're going to allow Jeff Johns, Joss Whedon, whatever, you know, people who know how to appeal to the general audience. I'm necessarily sure that's Jeff Johns because, yeah, anyone, but Zack Snyder, he wasn't in the right position. So it's been bad, run badly for a very, very long time. And, you know, Zaslav hasn't been there very long, just over a year. And he's already making enemies because he's not part of this industry. He hasn't got scripted experience. He was the CEO of Discovery, which he did a good job of running. But he came in, he made decisions, he made unpopular decisions. A lot of people are losing their jobs at WB. There's a lot of people losing their jobs at network streamers, you know, and studios all round. As I say, the industry is probably in its weakest position in history because they brought in the wrong people to run the industry. And, you know, you drive out good people, you bring in bad people. That's what happens. It's a bit like, you know, the WGA members striking, the Writers Guild of America's members striking right now. It reminds me of the Ransom movie where Mel Gibson goes, "Give me back my son!" When you're holding an industry to ransom, right, you better make sure your work is quality for people to want to get it back again. Well, instead of "give me back my son," this time Mel Gibson's would be saying, "Keep my son, keep him. It's okay. It's okay, Writers Guild. You can stay on strike. I ain't missing anything that you won't be giving me because unfortunately the industry has become a joke." When I go to bed at night, I put YouTube on and I've got a row on my timeline on YouTube. I've got a row of people making fun, exposing television and movies of today, pulling to pieces the writing, the plotting, the CG, and it's so easy to pull apart the shit they're making today. And that lies the problem. Look at Justice League. It's a joke. Are you telling me anyone from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even early noughties would allow a situation like Justice League to transpire? No, never. Because this is where we are today. A bunch of greedy fucking clowns who don't even know how to service their own fucking greed. They're that bad. Look at the Lucasfilm situation. Did you know it was George Lucas's idea to put Kathleen Kennedy as president of Lucasfilm, or he refused to sell it to Disney. What I think something's telling me that this guy wanted revenge on the people who hated the prequels and Jar Jar Binks. Oh yeah, George, you got your revenge. Good for you, because I love Jar Jar and I love the prequels. And people shouldn't have been so hostile because he was doing something a little bit different. Something I'm in big favour of, because nowadays it's been about franchises and the killing off of the movie star, and it's basically dead. It's dead man walking on the Green Mile as far as Hollywood is concerned. There isn't an industry anymore. It's on fire. It's Volcano Day, everyone, and I hope you've brought an umbrella because Hollywood are in a lot of trouble. But yeah, going back to Zaslav, I definitely believe he will go. He will be voted out. It's looking like this now that there is a kind of, there's a feeling of contempt towards him by the stockholders. And basically, he's in charge of Warner Brothers Discovery, but his stockholders are in charge of him. And they're seeing their stocks plummeting. Things are not going well. There's not a profit. And, this merge, don't forget, he convinced Discovery to merge with Warner Media, AT&T, and it's not working out because Discovery were doing very well, thank you very much, before they got involved with the scripted entertainment industry. And, obviously, Zaslav's stomach was bigger, I think his appetite was bigger than his stomach. Isn't that the phrase people use? And I think he's led the Discovery company in a situation they can't maintain, and it could destroy them. Also, if Zaslav is given a vote of no confidence, Discovery may decide to dissolve the merger between Warner Media. And that's messy because AT&T are back in charge. Can they even sell it at this point if that happens? So there is a lot of messy situations over there. Now, if Warner Brothers Discovery was to continue and the merger and the partnership between AT&T and Warner Media would continue, I do believe the next CEO may look at the DC Studios situation, may look at Gunn and Safran, and if Adby and DeLuca are part of this, let's say, conspiracy to get rid of Zaslav, then Adby and DeLuca could be in charge of the whole situation. They could be the next CEOs of, you never know. Or if someone else is the next CEOs of Warner Brothers Discovery, whatever, right? Adby and DeLuca may not be qualified for that situation. I don't know how it works, but I know that Zaslav's on his way out. And that means trouble for James Gunn and Peter Safran. And that means trouble for people who are excited about James Gunn and Peter Safran being in control. Don't forget, James Gunn's made a lot of plans. He's announced part 1 of his Gods and Monsters slate. The wheels are starting to turn. But if you did want to change things, the Writers Guild of America members strike right now is a good time to change your plans. Because of the writers' strike, not many plans can be made. It doesn't matter if you appoint a director, if you're cast without a script, there's nothing you can do. And nobody's allowed to write anything right now in scripted TV, scripted films. So basically, Hollywood is at a standstill. They can release the stuff that's already been written, already been made. They'll be shooting stuff that's already been written, and that's it. And they'll slowly come to a standstill unless someone makes a decision. There lies the problem. So yes, I think big trouble for James Gunn right now because I knew that Zaslav was in trouble. I've known Zaslav was in trouble for many weeks, but what I'm hearing now is very, very serious. He's made certain decisions, and let's see who replaces him when the vote of no confidence happens, because I believe sooner rather than later that will happen. Yes, David Zaslav isn't long as CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, and what happens next is anyone's guess, but I'm sure that James Gunn will be very, very nervous right now and keeping the holes of communication open with Kevin Feige and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And considering that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is probably the best reviewed movie from the MCU in quite some time, and it's making better money than the last few movies, oh yeah, you can bet they would welcome back James Gunn with open arms. We'll see. I think what may happen to James Gunn if somebody else becomes CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery is maybe he's allowed just to continue with his Suicide Squad universe as a separate universe. I think that's a compromise that could happen. But right now, there are no certainties one way or the other. This has been the DC Universe Daily, Thursday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host, with the most just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please smash the like button if you love me, subscribe if you're new, please have your say, smash the notification bell so you don't miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen!